What is going on, everybody? Draken here, and welcome back to the channel. Today's Thursday, April 10th, which means tomorrow is the official street release date for Tarkir Dragonstorm, and I hope you are all as excited as I am to talk about some of the cards in the set. Today, we are going to review some of my favorite cards in the set. We're going to talk about some of the commanders that go with these cards, some of the power brackets that go in these cards, and just maybe the idea and theory in which you can kind of throw some of these cards around into your deck. I will heavily lean into my thoughts on where these fit into the Dragon, in particular brackets 4 and higher, but I will leave some thoughts on some of these cards that fit into other Dragon commander decks, as well as other power levels in the brackets 3 and under. So this set is packed with brand new cards, and being pre-release was last weekend. Release date is tomorrow, and unfortunately I get my wisdom teeth out tomorrow. I figured what better time to kind of put out a video of my thoughts. I've been getting a lot of comments, a lot of questions on what I think of various cards in the set. And last time I did this with Baldur's Gate, it was pretty receptive to the community. I was much smaller at the time, and it still got a ton of views. So we're going to go into my thoughts of some of my favorite picks for various reasons. They could be cards that I think are just strong, cards that I'm going to play, cards that I just think are interesting that I would like to test out. And we're just going to kind of review them as a whole. We're not going to get into pricing really at all. These are all brand new cards, so it's really tough to kind of gauge where the market would be. I usually save the finance stuff for the reprint set. So we're just going to talk about playability for the time being. But before we get into that, I haven't done one of these in a while, so just obligatory channel pulse check. We're at 1.1k subscribers. Thank each and every one of you. You guys are the greatest. I can't thank you enough for just watching my content. Be sure to check out my Bracket 4 Edgar deck if you're into creature type decks still. You can also check out my 1,000 subscriber special where I kind of purchase my dual lands as well as amongst other things. But if it's your first, second, or third time visiting and you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit the subscribe button. It does go a long way. If you are in the market for some awesome trading card game accessories, whether you want deck boxes, play mats, binders with a really cool anime theme and aesthetic, be sure to check out duelingguard.com. They are my favorite kind of independent or smaller trading card game accessory company. They have all different things. They launched their Dueling Guard Gauntlet bag, which is like their minimalist bag I've been using for a couple months. It's fantastic. They have all these binders. They're really leaning heavily into the, I believe, the Yu-Gi-Oh theme right now, just due to this Maiden collection. But they have their Occult collection, amongst a bunch of others. If you go to some of their deck boxes here, I mean, you can kind of pick out. We have some Yu-Gi-Oh ones. Looks like this is Bleach. There's like One Piece peppered in here. There's Berserk. There's kind of all your favorites, and they usually fit 2 commander decks. So these are really nice. If you guys want to head on over, check them out, buy something that's really, really cool. Just use code Drake and you get a little discount, and I get a little bit of spiff back into the channel, which is great. And I've been asked how you guys can support me directly if you guys kind of want to go over to Buy Me a Coffee. It's kind of a little tip jar, definitely not obligatory, but I've been asked how I could be supported directly without all the YouTube fees through super chats. But any sort of support, whether it's through Buy Me a Coffee, a super chat, or even just a view, a like, and a sub goes a long way. So I do appreciate that. And also be sure to follow me on Moxfield, where you can see kind of all my decks. And yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to get into the first card here, and it's going to be Clarion Conqueror. So this is a bit of an interesting one. So it is 1 white and 2 for a 3/3 flyer. Activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers cannot be activated. So in the terms of dragon creature type as a whole, this could slot into really just the Dragon. I don't see this being able to slot into any like typal deck outside of 5 color. It's outside of Teamer color, so you're really going to play this in something 5 color unless there's something obscure out there that doesn't come to me. But being able to shut off activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers, I guess, are here nor there. But this is really good at your high power tables. This is your bracket 4 and 5 card, In the Dragon, it only costs 2 mana, so you can drop an early dragon card. Now, I will say this also can interrupt some of your effects as well. It's symmetrical, completely symmetrical. So this does involve a little bit of skill, a little bit of creative lines of play. But if you are at a bracket 4 or 5 table and you just need some time to stabilize, this card's a great card to slam down on the table. If you're kind of controlling the board and you're ahead of the game, you could play this guy on the table and kind of lock down the board from being able to advance and catch up to you, which is really nice. So I kind of like it in all aspects of that, and it's a 2 mana 3/3, so it's a decent body as well. But this is your definition of a bracket 4 to 5 card, and I think it's something I am going to try out just because, again, it does allow me to catch up. It does allow me to slow people down, and having a stacks ability just built into a dragon body goes kind of a long way. It's something that we haven't seen before, so I'm interested to try this guy out. Mostly, that low mana value is kind of important, and as we get into some other new cards, obviously the lower mana value, the better with a lot of things. But yeah, it's just a dragon stacks piece, and I think it is worth testing out. But I will say, if you are going to play a card like this, stay bracket 4 or 5. I don't really think it has a place lower than that. And think ahead, right? Be able to sequence your plays and kind of be able to anticipate what the table is going to do. The last thing you want to do is play this and all of a sudden you have, a bunch of mana rocks and a bunch of mana dorks, right? So good card. Good card. Has a lot of potential and a lot of way for some, I would say maybe some skill expression as well in terms of deck building and deck playing. Dragonologist. I just wanted to touch base on this card because I personally play Dragon in the bracket 4. There's some of you, like my boy Willip, who will play like CDH bracket 5. A lot of you like to sit in bracket 4, but a big chunk of you, especially some of you guys in the Discord I've seen, play in like the bracket 3 realm too. So I just wanted to highlight this card because I don't think it has a place in anything above bracket 3 just because it is a 3-mana wizard. It's not a dragon, but let's talk about it. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 6 cards of your library for an instant sorcery or dragon. So this is kind of interesting, right? Like it hits 3 different types of cards. It can get you a removal spell, it can get you a ramp spell, and it can get you a dragon spell, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of like hard to whiff. Like I feel like you would get something amongst the top cards, and then untapped dragons have hexproof. In those bracket 2, 3 battle cruisery style metas, I feel like this card is actually pretty decent just because, all your dragons have hexproof as long as they're untapped. Obviously, as soon as you go to swing in, they have the window to respond, but it does create it creates some layers to gameplay, and it's just free, right? It replaces itself, and it gives your untapped dragons hexproof, which is really nice. And maybe if you can give them like vigilance or something, then you kind of have just perma hexproof, which is kind of cool. But again, you're playing around with this card in the bracket, 3 or less. And again, it's a human wizard in your dragon deck, which like kind of has like a weird place, but it does kind of replace itself. And yeah, I think in the lower brackets, it does have some legs, and it's a really interesting card. Again, especially if you have something like vigilance. Morang River Region. So this is first of the Omen cards. So Omen kind of, in general, we'll talk about that for a minute. It kind of threw me off. So you kind of read it because it looks like the adventure cards, right? Where you have to cast them in sequence. But Omens are a bit different. So you can cast like either or side of the card. So this is kind of similar to like the split cards. So I can, and then basically at the appropriate, speeds, I can cast it as the instant or as the spell or as the creature. So its spell side is 3 and a blue, draw 3 cards, discard a card. Not the greatest rate, right? Like obviously if that was a standalone card, you probably don't play it anywhere, but it's not an awful rate because on the other side, for 4 and double blue, in the Dragon, this is 3 and double blue. Flyer, when this creature enters, return up to 2 other non-land permanents to their owner's hand. So you can target some of your own stuff, you can target their stuff to kind of do some removal, some bounce, but a lot of the Omen cards, regardless, like they're kind of 2 mech cards stapled together, but like the modal capability of it is kind of what makes them playable. I could see you playing this in like a teamer style dragon deck. Again, I don't see this card breaking through into like the bracket 4 and higher. This is definitely, I think, a 3 and lower kind of card. I mean, unless you can make some sort of combos with it. So there might be a way where you can go infinite with this somehow by doing something. I'm sure there is. I just don't know what that is. And again, the cool thing about this set is you'll see a lot of different cards that play in different power levels, right? We got some higher power cards. We got some bracket 3 cards, some bracket 2 cards. And that's kind of the cool thing about this set is, you know, depending on what bracket you're in, you're not going to play everything. But there's something for everybody, no matter like what level you want to play the Dragon or really any dragon creature type deck, which is pretty cool. And I think this is kind of the perfect example of like kind of just like a mid card, but in those lower power brackets, it has legs. It's a draw spell and then it's a removal spell, right? So like this card. I think this card has some potential in some places. So this is my, I feel like every time I do some of these set reviews, like when I did the Baldur's Gate one, I kind of have like my pocket picks, Scale Nurturer, and what was the other one? I completely spaced on the name. Basically, Willop knows. It's the 3-mana dragon that creates a treasure, and then you could sack a treasure to give like a creature double strike. The name escapes me for some reason. It's been a long day, but those are kind of like my pocket picks for or specs in terms of like, hey, they are, you know, much better than they seem kind of thing. And I think this could be one of those cards. I like cards like this a lot, and especially when you're not playing in like CEDH bracket 5, you do have more time and you can get more mid-rangey, wheel spinny kind of things going. So let's get into Roiling Dragonstorm and just break down this card as a whole. Sorry, that was my soundbar turning off. So it's 1 blue and 1. When it's an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, you draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So it's kind of cycling through some things. When a dragon you control enters, so this doesn't have to be cast, you can create a token, you can cheat something into play. You then return this to your hand, which means at a later turn, or even the same turn if you have enough mana, you can then cast it again to draw 2 and discard 1. Now, I will say the first time you resolve this card, it's pretty mid, right? But you're playing it for the repeatability, right? So turn 2, cast this thing, cycle through some cards. Maybe turn 4, you cast this card again, draw 2, discard 1, play a dragon, bounce it back to your hand. And it just kind of allows you to kind of have a consistent engine of just seeing different cards. One of the reasons why I like cards like in the past, like Painful Truth, Nice Whisper, those kind of like low to the ground card draw spells is because they allow you to smooth out your draws, hit your land drops, and curve out into the cards that you want to curve out into, right? This fits that bill very well, but it also just has the ability to be freely repeatable. I think this card definitely warrants some testing in the brackets 4 and less. I really think you can get a ton of repeatable value out of this, and the longer your games go, the more value you get out of this, right? Because ideally you always have Roiling Dragonstorm, so you never lose that card. So you're kind of just always getting that, beyond the first cast, you're kind of getting that +1, which is really, really nice. Not to mention, you know, you're playing the Dragon, you are probably packing some amount of reanimation, right? Whether it's Ancient Brass, Teneb, Blade Wing, or any just reanimation spells in general. Now you're tossing creatures into your graveyard to then reanimate on a later turn. So there's some additional value as well. If you're playing maybe Scion as your commander, now you're fueling your graveyard, because if you're playing Scion, you're just playing reanimation, right? It just goes hand in hand together. So I think this card has a lot of potential and a lot of playability, right? And the fact that I am such a mid-range value player, this card speaks to me a lot. What I want to do to the audience is I really want to see other people try this card out as well, right? Like, I can't get in a million games and let you guys know like this is the best card in the world, or maybe I'm just you know, analyzing it too much and it's awful. But this is where I kind of want to, you know, a little bit of call to action and just ask for you guys' help. Okay, if you guys kind of liked the way I position, like the way I explain this card, please try it, pack it in your deck and test it out. What's the worst that could happen? I would love to see what you guys think about this, because I think this is a sleeper card. Again, just some of the lines of play of just smoothing out your spells, boomeranging it back to your hand, playing it maybe on turn 4, drawing 2 more cards. Then, maybe you create a dragon token off a Lathless or something. Okay, boom, bounce it back to my hand, cast it, see 2 more new cards, right? And at the rate in which this kind of expedites and speeds through your deck, right? Now you're drawing more cards because you always have access to a card draw spell, right? As long as I could play a dragon and get this to my hand, I always have access to seeing more cards, which is great, which allows me to get to my counter spells, which allows me to get to my value spells, which allows me to get to my removal when I need it, which allows me to get to my game enders, right? So just cycling through more cards is quite good. So I'm pretty high on this. I'm excited to test this out, but let me know what you all think. This is my sleeper pick of the set for sure. All right, going into black, we have Coroding Dragon Storm. So I'm not as high on this card as I am Roiling Dragon Storm, but I think this one has a place, right? If you're playing maybe like a Teamer deck, like a Mirim or Myrim, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Again, you're playing that Scion style deck, or maybe you just like packing kind of like maybe a Reanimate package into your Dragon deck. I think this card is interesting. I think there are builds and power levels where this card is playable, right? Coroding Dragon Storm, 1 black 1. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Here nor there. But you also surveil 2. So you look at the top 2, can put them in your graveyard, which is really nice. And then when a dragon you control enters, you return it to your hand. So this has the same thing. All the Dragon Storms have that repeated. Wow, it's been a long one, long day. Repeated playability. So you can play this card, 3-4 times, drain the table for some life, kind of look at some extra cards, card selection, put some cards in your graveyard. And again, if you're packing a reanimation strategy, that's just free. I just thought this card was worth talking about. Scavenger Region, another card I'm pretty excited on. So this is an Omen card, so you can cast it for Omen or you can cast it for the actual Scavenger Region. Let's just talk Scavenger Region. It's 3 and a black, so in your Dragon deck, it's 2 and a black, so it's just a 3 mana 4/4 flying. It's not awful. I know in Commander we're used to cards having a lot of text, but this is just a straightforward hard-nosed card. And it also has ward discard a card. So if they want to deal with it with a spell, they have to discard a card. But on the other side is kind of like a pseudo deluge, toxic deluge. You have to pay mana as opposed to life, but double black and X, each non-dragon gets -6/-X till the end of the turn. So this card's interesting. It is 1/2 board wipe, 1/2 mid dragon. And when you slap those two things on one card, you get a pretty great card, to be honest. This is a card that I'm going to test out. I'm going to slot into my Dragon deck. One of the things with creature type decks, especially ones that, well, I guess all creature type decks are creature based, but like board wipes get you, right? If you don't have a well-timed counterspell, you don't have a well-timed way to bounce back, maybe card draw or protection spells, like it just kind of sets you back a little bit. And I think kind of being able to wipe the board without wiping your own things to kind of close the game is pretty valuable. And again, it's a smaller dragon, right? 3 mana is on the lower end for dragons, I think, overall. And it's just going to allow you to wipe the board and keep your best guys. You could kind of pour as much mana as you need to into it. If you need to wipe a big creature, you put a ton of mana into it. If you want to wipe, everything 4 or less, you just put 6 mana into it, and then you shuffle it back in your deck to draw at a later time. So this is a card I definitely wanted to test out just because you do lack some board wipes the more creature heavy you get, because you are susceptible to board wipes, right? So you just include the ones that are one-sided. And I think, board wipe being on a dragon, pretty good. I definitely see this in 4 or less. Like, I would say even in 4, bracket 4, it does have some legs, but I don't think you need this in a bracket 5, and I think in anything 3 or less, this card's also money. So, Breaching Dragonstorm, one of the other Dragon Storms. This is 1 red and 4. When this enchantment enters, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If its mana value is 8 or less, If you don't, it just goes into your hand, so it draws you a card. And when a dragon you control enters, return it to your hand. Again, I think this falls into some sort of like big, stompy, teamery dragon deck. I don't really think this has a ton of legs, like a ton of playability in the Dragon, just because you have access to 5 colors. You look at something like Majestic Genesis, which doesn't cost much more. Last March of the Ents, which allow you to play a bunch of creatures. But I do think if you're playing on like a budget, like this is a decent card because it replaces itself. So like it doesn't like do nothing, right? Like you're going to get a card, right? If you have to draw that card because it's like more than 8, yeah, it's not the best feeling in the world, but obviously you would probably tailor your deck so this works a little bit better. But ideally you get something that costs like at least 5 mana, right? Something that costs at least 5 when you flip this. I would imagine you're tailoring your deck if you're playing this to kind of maximize that. So I do think has some playability in some budget decks, definitely more in the teamer end of things, but you could play this in a 5-color deck. And then anytime a dragon enters, it goes back to your hand. So if you cast this and you end up flipping a dragon, it will just come back to your hand. You can then cast it like next turn or later. I'm sure there's a world where you can like cast this, get it, flip something, bounce this back to your hand, and then create like infinite mana and infinite ETBs on a dragon and just play your whole board. I'm sure there's something you could do with that. But interesting card. Definitely, in your lower power or something that is really tailored to maximizing a card like this. Excuse me. Draco Genesis, one of the big ones everybody has been hyped about. So, excuse me, I needed a drink. So, you got 2 kinds of people with this card, as well as another card we'll talk about in a little bit. But you got 2 scopes of individuals. You have one side that's like, this card's amazing. I'm going to slam this in my dragon deck, and I'm just going to throw everything on the board. And then you have your other side that's like, this card's not good. You could just, it's kind of a meme now, right? Like, just play Omniscience. I mean, it does cost less, right? And I think this is a situation where you're probably playing this in some sort of, like, if you're playing this in, like, bracket 4, I don't think it has any room in bracket 5. I mean, I guess maybe there's some sort of, like, combo deck you could play. If you're playing this in bracket 4, you are playing it as, like, a combo, I guess. I don't think this is a ton of room. It doesn't have a home, I think, in bracket 4. If you're talking 3 or less, I do think this has some sort of home because you can just play like a lot of these draw spells and fill your hand and then throw it on the board. Maybe you can cheat this out, but it's a little bit memey, and I think there is some value to be said where like Dragon costs 9, this costs 8. You could cheat this to the board, or you can maybe Dragon, you casted him, and now Dragon costs like 11, and you can just play Dragon, for 2 mana or something. So there's some like cheekiness involved in that. Is it a particularly strong card? No. Again, it has its place, I think, when you lean into combo or just, that bracket 2-3 realm. So I'm pretty indifferent about it. Do I think it's a good card? Not really for what like I would be kind of analyzing and through the lens of like how I like to play. I don't think it is, but I do think it has some homes. And again, it's going to be in those, bracket 3, 2, and those combo decks, or just somebody who wants to, live the meme and, just play a bunch of dragons for free out of your hand. So. Another card I am very, very excited about. It's Magmatic Hellkite. So this in your Dragon deck is 1 red, and every other deck it's 2 red. It's a flyer. When this creature enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Its controller searches their library for a basic land and puts it onto the battlefield tapped with a stun counter on it. So let's break this down. 3 mana dragon in the Dragon. It's going to nuke a non-basic, right? In a perfect world, you're hitting Cabal Coffers, Gaia's Cradle, Sarah's Sanctum, maybe Hall of Heliod's Generosity, like one of those like really cool, splashy, super powerful like utility lands. You want to kill it, and then they get a basic, and the basic comes to the board with a stun counter, which is allows them to they cannot use it, so they're going to be behind a land on their next turn, which is interesting. So I really like this card. I do think it has homes in. I guess you could play it in every bracket, but you're probably going to get the most value out of it in the bracket 4 or 5, maybe in like high threes. I guess you could hit some lands in that regard. But I think it's definitely going to be in your 4 and 5 bracket homes. Definitely 4, just because the turns tend to go a little bit longer. My only question is this: is like, okay, I like the idea of this. But there was a card made a couple of years ago for Modern Horizons 2 called Obsidian Charmaw that does something very similar, but it's like I was experimenting with Charmaw and he would kind of come in and out, and I was like, is this card better than Charmaw? I don't know. Let's discuss. So, Obsidian Charmaw. So this costs 5, 4 in the Air Dragon. So in theory, in a vacuum, it costs 1 more mana, but maybe it doesn't. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land your opponent controls that can produce a colorless. So again, those bracket 4 and 5s, you're going to have more utility lands because you want to get value out of your lands. So chances are this card is going to cost like 2 or 3 mana. When it enters, you just destroy target non-basic land. So you got to consider, like, are you playing Charmaw right now? The answer is no. I really don't think you're going to play the other guy. Maybe you are. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Again, this is like that bracket 4 or 5 card. I guess, again, you could get away with it in 3s, but like, do you just play none of them at this point? Because if you didn't play Charmaw, I don't know if that card's like any better. Or maybe you just lean into it and you play both, which is actually exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to fit both, just because those bracket 4 decks, those lands, right? And if you're in a play group that doesn't play like super powerful lands, maybe they play utility, but they're just kind of like meh. I mean, they don't need to play either of those cards, right? But that's kind of my argument, is like, are you playing Charmaw? Are we playing this card right now? If the answer is no, like, I don't know. Do you really want to play the other card? Because they're roughly similar. Like, I even think Charmaw might be slightly better, but that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Then we have Sarin Dragon Ascendant. It's 1 red 1. When Sarkhan enters, you may behold a dragon. If you do, create a treasure token. Whenever a dragon you control enters, you may put a 1/1 counter on Sarkhan. Until the end of the turn, Sarkhan becomes a dragon and gains flying. This is a cool card. I mean, I think it's very thematic. I think it's interesting and it's very memey, and I definitely want to cast this card at some point, so I can behold a dragon to the table, just to kind of fulfill that dream. But let's talk about playability, right? So they've been kind of doing this thing with Sarkhan where he can like turn into a dragon, right? Which is kind of cool, right? He's kind of like this dragon-born. I don't really know the lore, but like transforming into a dragon is like pretty sweet. There's been a couple iterations of him, right? So that's cool. When he comes to the board, if you behold a dragon, you make a treasure. So he's effectively just a 1 mana card. Which is kind of cool. You could maybe use that treasure for something. And then whenever you cast a dragon, he's going to get, or comes into play, right? He gets bigger, and then he becomes a dragon. So he's not a dragon, but he can be. The thing is, you need a dragon to make him a dragon. So you're not like enabling Jasper through this, which is, he does get bigger. So I don't know. I'm pretty indifferent. Am I going to play this card? Probably not. I mean, there's probably a world where I just try it just for the sake of trying it. But you got to think of it like ceiling and floor with a card like this. Like, what's the ceiling? Like, what's the best case scenario out of like 1/2 mana card of Sarkhan? Well, he eventually just gets like really big. I think that's kind of cool, but that, again, that's reserved for like your bracket 2, maybe your bracket 3. Bracket 4 or 5, you probably won't see that. One of the other cool things is he's like a pseudo low mana dragon. So, okay, like he's not a dragon, but I could make him a dragon, and now I have some low mana dragons to help with my volume, which is cool. But if that really matters, you could just play like Universal Automaton or something, which is like a 1 mana 1/1 changeling. You know what I mean? So if you're just like, okay, maybe he's kind of like a low mana dragon. So I don't know. He's just kind of clunky, and I think he's really cool, and I would love to play him just because he's Sarkhan. And there's probably a world where I play him, but it's not for power. It would just kind of be a flavor pick, I guess, at that point, or just to try them out, just to see how it works. But I think it has its charm and aspects in some bracket 2 for thematic, bracket 3, but again, not a particularly powerful card. I'll probably end up omitting it. Stormcale Scion, one of the first cards spoiled for the set. 4 red, in your Dragon, it's 3 red. Flying, it's a Lord, so other dragons get +1/+1, and it has Storm. Yeah, this card's nuts, right? Like, it's just, if you look at it, you read it, it's got Storm, it's a Lord, so every other copy you make busts every other copy, and it's an insane card. I don't believe it's an Dragon card, just by the nature of it. I do believe this is, like, goes in a different deck. Like, it's kind of a win con in your Spellslinger deck, maybe, but it's not a spell, so it's a little weird, right? I just don't know if this has home in the Dragon. Maybe, like, I don't know, you can do some, like, changeling creature type thing where you just cast, like, a bunch of cheap changelings and just play this, and now they're all big. I don't know. Again, I think it's a great card. It's just not an Dragon card, and I think we could just move on from there. All right, so this is one of the big ones everybody's talking about. Call the Spirit Dragons. This is, again, you got 2 sides of the fence on this. You got, this card is awful, win more, terrible, don't play it. And you have, like, oh, you win the game, it's amazing. I like to look at things a little differently, right? So Wooburg, dragons have indestructible, relevant, completely relevant, especially in brackets 4 or less, completely relevant text. Is it worth 5 mana? No, but it's there. And I know indestructible is not as strong as it used to be just because of the way the game's designed, but it is there. At the beginning of your upkeep, for each color, put a 1/1 counter on a dragon you control of that color. If you put a 1/1 counter on 5 different dragons, this way you win the game, right? So there's one aspect of, like, well, it's just like a win more card. Like, if you already have 5 dragons, you're probably just going to win the game. And that could absolutely be true. And then there's the other side of, like, well, you just win. Again, I want to look at it a little different, right? Essentially, if you sit down at a commander table and you have a 5-color dragon commander, right? It could be Dragon, it could be Scion, it could be Morphon. Whether you are actually playing this card or not, this card is a threat to the table. Like, this is, if I sit down, 5-color dragon deck, they have to go, okay, he might be playing Call the Spirit Dragons. There is a high possibility this card is in the deck, right? So what it does is it creates layers to the game, which I think is very interesting, right? Also, an aspect, you could have, 4 or 5 dragons on the board, right? And they could be looking to maybe answer those dragons, and maybe you can't win there. And then you go, okay, I'll cast Call the Spirit Dragons. So here's where we're at. You can answer Call the Spirit Dragons, and I win the game if you don't, right? So it's just the threat of, hey, I'm going to win this game. So again, it's less for the card is just going to win you the game and it's super strong and it's an auto win. Like, if you have 5 dragons, and more of the, like, the layers and the dynamic it can and will create. And that's why I kind of like this card, right? Again, it's the threat of being able to win, being there, that is more valuable than actually winning the game, I think. Just the threat that this card might be in my deck, or I have casted this card, it did resolve. What will you do now, right? And I think that goes a long way. I am going to try it. I am going to play it. I could be wrong. It could be awful, because it is an upkeep trigger at the end of the day, but it is the psychology, the dynamic, and the layers of gameplay that a card like this creates, because your opponents just have to prepare for it being in your deck. Maybe they save removal for it, right? Now, if you are worried about Call the Spirit Dragons, you're not worried about Dragon Tempest as much. So Dragon Tempest stays on the board longer, right? So it then becomes a lightning rod for things. So you're, again, layers of gameplay and dynamic. And I feel like that kind of game style really thrives in, like, brackets 4 into brackets 3. And I think it's relevant and it matters. It's also an enchantment, right? So if you guys watched my last Dragon deck tech, I was playing Hall of Helios Generosity, right? So you could set up and threaten, just threaten to win the game, and they're like, all right, kill it. We got rid of it. And then you're like, all right, Hall of Helios Generosity, put it on top, draw for turn, cast it again. We're back where we started, right? So you're just putting pressure on people, and you may actually win sooner. This card might cause you to win sooner than you actually intended. And if you win like that, great. It's like, oh wow, I casted it, it resolved, and you didn't answer it. Like that also happens, right? Cast, resolve. What do you got? Well, we don't have an answer. All right, next game. Like that also will happen as well, right? And then there's times where they do answer it, and then there's times where you can recur it. But it's just the dynamic it creates. And I think layers of gameplay is good. Thinking, of different casting patterns and different ways cards interact aside from just what's printed on the card goes a long way. And Call of Spirit Dragon is just one of those cards that add dynamic, and that's what I shoot for. So I'm going to be playing it. I'm going to be trying it out. Let me know what you guys think. Here we have an indirect support card in Frostcliffe Siege. It's red, blue, 1. You can choose Temur or Jeskai. If you choose Jeskai, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So essentially for each player you attack, if they get 3, you draw a card. So you can draw 3 cards. If they have double strike, you would draw 6 if you hit up every player. So it's a nice, enchantment-y card draw spell, right? It's continuous. It's going to stick to the board. And then Temur is creatures you control gets +1/+0 and have haste. Like, okay, we love haste. We're dragons. We love haste. We also love trample. If you have a 2/2 bird token, if you have just some pesky flyers, maybe you're playing an angel deck, right? Like now I can punch through for damage. I have haste. This is exactly what I want. I could definitely see myself playing this card. What I would cut for it, I'm not sure. Again, this is in your metas that are probably bracket 4 or less, but it's good. I mean, it draws cards when you need to draw cards. It gives you haste when you need haste. It makes them bigger. It makes them punch through. Is it better than... I forget the name of the card, but it's when a non-token creature enters, they get Riot, so they can have haste or a +1/+1 counter. But it also has static text that your creature spells can't be countered. So that's like super good in higher power tables. Like your creature spells can't be countered, but this is modal, right? So I could definitely see myself playing both or either or. And I do think this has a home in a lot of dragon decks. Again, we want haste, we want damage, we want power, and we want to draw cards. It is all those things. You just kind of have to choose one for the scenario. Nariv, Heart of the Storm. So these new like spirit dragon things, a lot of them are very narrow in design and are specifically designed to support different archetypes. So there's not a ton of them in here, but I really just wanted to talk about Nariv for a minute because it's Mardu and 1 in the Ur Dragon is just black, white, red flyer. If a creature you control entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice the damage instead. I don't know. I just think this card is interesting. I think it has some playability, especially if you are trying to win through combat or anything along the likes. So this card is pretty much useless if you don't have haste, but you have Dragon Tempest on the board. Maybe this is Dragon number 4. You bolt something, and then now this guy deals double the damage, and maybe you cast another dragon, and that dragon deals double the damage when it attacks, or if it has like a direct damage ability. I don't know. I just think it's interesting. It's not a card that I want to completely overlook. Whether I actually play it or not, only time will tell, but it was interesting, and I feel like it is playable, but you do kind of need haste for it to be relevant at all. Whoops. Next, we have Temur Battlecryer. Not a dragon again, but also like a very good card just in general that I feel like has legs. Maybe you can even get away with this in some sort of bracket 5 deck, and we'll get into that why. But I definitely think 4 or less, you can maybe creep into 5 with this. But it's Temur. It's an Orc Ranger. It's a 4/3. During your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less for each creature you controlled power 4 or greater. So for each big boy on the board, your spells cost 1 less. your spells. All of your spells. So it's your creatures, it's your instants, it's your sorceries, it's your enchantments. So all your spells cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. I also will say this guy has power 4, so it kind of fuels itself right off the bat, right? Which is really cool. And again, if you're leaning into like trying to double spell, like play, you know, 3 or 4 different spells in a turn, like you get much more value out of something like this. And again, like the Dragon Speaker Shamans of the world, like personally, like I'm not a fan of those just because they only reduce a portion of your deck, but like your deck is the majority spells, and this is automatically going to give you 1 mana off of every spell you cast. If you have more than 1 creature on the board with power 4 or greater, then it's reduced even more, right? So I do think this card has some playability. I think I'm going to find room for this in my Dragon deck. Again, you could just save a lot of mana from like double and triple spelling, and then if you refill your hand with like a card draw spell, now you're just cheating. It feels like you're cheating at that point. So I like this card. This card's really good. And it has homes in like your Teamer Dragon decks. It has homes in like your big Stompy decks, and it has homes like outside of just dragons in general. So awesome card. Teamer Battlecryer is a very, very good sleeper card. I'll probably buy a couple copies. So we have Ureni, the Song Unending. So this is a big, beefy boy, right? Like probably I think it's the biggest creature in the set. So it's 5 Teamer. In the Dragon, it would be 4 Teamer. Flying pro black, pro white. So it's got really good protection stats. It's going to dodge most removal, things like that. When it enters, it deals X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of target creatures or planewalkers your opponents control, where X is the number of lands. So I don't know if I would play this in like the Dragon in particular. It really just kind of like depends on your build. I just wanted to highlight this because like a lot of people, I like to diversify my ramp a little bit. I have a couple rocks, I have a couple mana dorks, I have some land ramp, and that's just kind of the way I've designed my deck. But there are, especially when you lean into like the budget end of things, where like you don't have the really expensive dorks, you don't have the really expensive mana rocks, and you just like, let me just pump my deck with like the 3 visits, the Nature's Claims of the world. Like a card like this is like really good because you just like drop free damage based on the number of lands you controls, and it's big. I definitely think it's more in that bracket 3 or less. Probably could creep into 4 depending on your deck build, but again, just another card I wanted to highlight just because it was just interesting. The other, or the last maybe, controversial card of the set. Let me take a drink because I feel like I'm going to talk about this thing a lot. Okay. Mox Jasper. 0 mana. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Activate only if you control a dragon. So you have 2 sides of the fence in this card. One, again, we have the insanely broken, wow, it's a Mox for dragons. And you have the other side, it's like, well, dragons usually cost a lot of mana. This card's like not very good. You also have it being labeled as like fast mana, quote unquote. Obviously, it fits the bill in terms of like what fast mana is, in terms of like definition. It's a mana rock that costs 0, right? But when you think of it as fast mana, then you have some variables, and the playability is kind of random, right? If you have a 1 mana dragon and this, it's probably one of the best cards in your deck. But if you open up with a 4 mana dragon and that's like kind of it, you don't have any dragons to cast, like obviously this card's awful. So it's one of those things where I will say, number one, you have to build with it in mind, meaning you want your curve to be nice. It's something that I'm doing anyway. Like I already make sure my curve is very nice. But I feel like if you want the most value out of a card like this, try not to think of it as fast mana. Try not to think of it like your Mox Opal, your Chrome Mox, things like that. You'd want to think of it more like a Mox Amber kind of thing, whereas it's not really fast mana. Like it has the ability to be fast, right? But think of it more like free mana, right? So think of it of like, hey, if I have a 1-drop dragon, this card's insane. But if I have a 2-drop dragon or a 3-drop dragon, I know on turn 2 or 3, I'll just have an extra mana, and it still accelerates you. Again, still a very strong card in that regards. And if you open this and two 5-mana dragons, you're probably gonna mulligan that hand away anyway. So really think of it as like free mana as opposed to fast mana. And I'll kind of put a scenario out there for you guys, and you guys can kind of gauge this a little bit. And it's not a complete linear one-for-one example, but I think it kind of echoes my point a little bit. So like, let's say you're playing a mono blue deck, right? And off the top on turn 4, you top deck Mox Sapphire, right? Again, we're going to say it's legal, right? We're going to go on the premise it's legal. Are you mad? Are you upset? Are you like, oh man, I wish this was any other card? Probably not. You're probably like, oh wow, okay. I guess I'll cast this and I get an extra mana this turn, right? If your answer to that question is, yeah, no, I'm not mad at drawing a turn 4 Sapphire in a blue deck, then you're probably going to like a card like this. If the answer is like, no, I really don't like the feeling of drawing something like that on turn 4, then you're probably not going to like a card like this. I like the thought of free mana, and again, it has the potential to be fast. Especially you have things like Scale Nurturer. You have a lot of 2-mana dragons and 3-mana dragons that have been printed in like the last 3 or 4 years, right? So it's much more playable, I think, than some people give it credit for. But I also don't think it's as insane as some people say, because it does have its restrictions, right? So I do think if you're going to play Mox Jasper, have the correct expectations of free, not fast, right? Put yourself into a scenario, if you were to draw a Mox on turn 4 or 5, what is your feeling of that? If you're like, hell yeah, I'll take that, then you probably want Jasper. If it's like, nah, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, you probably don't want Jasper in your deck. I will tell you, I'm going to at least try it out. I'm going to play it, and I think I'm going to be impressed. I think I will like it, because I am one who really pays attention to my curve, and I have been leading into a lot of low mana dragons, and this can expedite you into some really good early game plays, and there's just no restriction on what you could use the mana on. So we were kind of talking about this in my Discord, which I'll do a plug for my Discord. If you guys are not a part of the Dragon's Den, be sure to ping me, and I'll send you a request. You can join. We talk about all sorts of stuff. We've been doing a lot of Dragonstorm talk, obviously, and people have mixed feelings about this in the Discord as well. So again, take my opinion and kind of mold it into your own if you'd like. But I do think if you think about this card in a different way, it gives you a different perspective, and I think it's a little bit more playable than some people give it credit for. So this card is awesome. This is like you guys know I love lands in general, right? This is like probably my favorite card in the set, if not very close. But like Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. Tap out a colorless. Tap out a mana of any color to spend a dragon or an omen spell, which is really cool. And then, if you don't need it anymore, you can pay 4 and sack it and tap it to search your library for a dragon card and put it in your hand. It's just like everything you want on a dragon land, which is like nuts. Back in the original Tarkir block, we got like Haven of the Spirit Dragon, which is like similar, except you could like regrow a dragon, which is like really cool. But this allows you to just tutor for once, so you just play both. Another good rainbow utility 5-color land for the Dragon. This card's a slam dunk. Buy a couple copies. Those of you who are like me, just like to brew decks that have dragons as the focal point, buy a couple of these. Like, it's pre-ordering for $1.65 for the base copy. Yeah, it's just it's nuts. I mean, it's just a good card. I mean, you can't really. Yeah, it's good. So that was the main set. We'll just bridge into a couple touch base on just some commander deck cards. So this is Broodcaller Scourge, 5 green in the Dragon. It's 4 green flyer. When one or more dragons you control deal combat damage to a player, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the damage from your hand onto the battlefield. I think it's a cool card. Personally, I think it costs too much mana for my taste, but I could definitely see some decks where this card's cool. And again, it's for each player, right? So if you have a dragon hit, everybody at the table, you can drop, you know, 3 different permanents based on the damage that you dealt. So I think it's cool. I think it has a home. Maybe not in my taste, just because it does cost a chunk of mana. But I could see people playing this card, and I wouldn't be mad about it. I would totally agree. Thundermane Dragon. This card's interesting. Again, it's just like one of those cards that's like, yeah, I could definitely see myself playing this. I don't know where or how or when, but I could definitely see myself testing a card like this at some point. Thundermane, 3 red, and the Ur Dragon is 2 red, 4/4 flyer. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You can cast creature spells with power 4 or greater from the top, and if you cast them this way, they gain haste. It just allows you to get free cards. I don't usually like this text of like you may cast certain things from the top of your library just because like the percentage of your deck, depending on how you build it. But if you have this in the right deck, maybe like one of those like really cool like Mirim or Teamer decks, it allows you just to cast things for free and they get haste. I don't know. I just think it's interesting. It only costs 3 mana in the Ur Dragon too, so like 3 mana. I mean, I'm not upset. Parapet Thrasher. So I will tell you, like, this is just like one card I'm going to definitely include in my Ur Dragon deck. 2 red, and the Ur Dragon, it's 1 red, flyer. When 1 or more dragons you control deal combat damage to opponent, again, we have that for each player hit ability. You could choose one that hasn't been chosen. Destroy target artifact, deal 4 damage to each other opponent, and exile the top card of your library. You may play it. So ideally, if you hit all 3 players, you blow something up, you deal 4 damage, and you get a free card. And it's 3 mana. Again, like they're doing like a really good job with the design here of just like these 3-ish mana dragons that just do a lot of like decent things. Like no one of these abilities is like amazing, but you put them all on one card, and the fact that you can like trigger them all in the same turn, like you got a pretty good card. Put on a 3 mana 4/3, like it's very playable. And I think it's one of those cards that's just playable in all brackets. Like you could just play this in every bracket and be happy with it. You know, in those 4s and 5s, killing an artifact is very, very crucial. In those, you know, 4s and 3s, getting the free card off the top of your library is great. And in your 3s and your 3s and 2s and stuff like that, like 4 damage to each other opponent is just free damage. And even in bracket 4, like if you repeat that ability, you know, 2-3 turns in a row, like it stacks. I like this card. One of my favorites. Hammerhead Tyrant. I just thought this was an interesting card. I don't know if I would play it. Again, this probably has homes somewhere, but 4 blue. And the Ur Dragon is 3 blue. Flying 6/6. Whenever you cast a spell, you can return up to 1 target non-land permanent to his owner's hand with mana value less than or equal to the spell cast. So you play this, and then if you follow up with like a 4 mana spell, you can boomerang something 4 or less. I just think it has a home somewhere. Probably not in my Ur Dragon deck, but I can see like where you would play something like this. Maybe in, again, those teamery decks, they gave a lot of teamer support. Maybe just like a big beefy boy dragon deck, especially if like you turbo out the Ur Dragon, that's like your strategy. You play something like this off his ability, and then you could just start turning things to their hand. And again, there's probably some sort of combo with this where you could just start returning a bunch of different things. But yeah, I don't know. I think it has a home somewhere. Not my favorite, but definitely not the worst. This card's interesting. Deceptive Frostkite. It's blue. It's a 1/1 flyer. You may have this creature enter as a copy of a creature you control with power 4 or greater, except as a dragon and is flying. In like an Ur Dragon deck, I mean, I don't know. Everything's kind of like a dragon anyway. But a 2 mana dragon clone, is there something to be said for it? And I know they have to have power 4 or greater, but 2 mana dragon clone, like that's something that I don't want to overlook. And there might be a point in time or a strategy where I would want to include this. You know, turning into like, I don't know. I don't think Terror of the Peaks is legendary, might be, but like double Terror, you know, double Scourge of Valkis, like just things like that. And you already have Mirim and stuff like that to like make clone copies of things. So I don't know. The fact that this does have to clone like your own card, your own creature is kind of like shitty too. But I would like to clone anything on the board and make it a dragon, which would be awesome. But you have to clone your own stuff. So I don't know. I don't want to overlook it. It probably has some legs somewhere, but Protector of the Waste, same thing. Like super indifferent about a card like this. I think it does have its place. 4 white white in the Air Dragon. It's 3 white white. Flyer. When this creature enters or becomes monstrous, exile 2 artifacts and/or enchantments controlled by different players. So you can't hit the same player. It's artifacts. It's enchantments. It's sorcery speed the first time. It's instant speed the second time through monstrosity. But it's a ton of mana. I probably won't play this card, but like if I saw somebody play it, I wouldn't laugh. I would be like, oh yeah, I know, it's a decent card. Maybe if you're on a budget, maybe if you're someone who's playing like some sort of cheaty deck, maybe like a sneak attack style Scion kind of thing. Even in the Air Dragon, like being able to play this for free, but 5 mana to cast, 5 mana to monstrous, so it's like 10 mana to exile 4 things. Not the best rate. But again, it's not awful. Like it's something to look at, especially if you're like playing on a budget or something. So yeah. So this is a card I also really like. This is Goldlust Triad. It's 4 red, and the Ur Dragon is 3 red for a 4/3. 4 mana, 4/3. Good. All right, I can do that. Flyer. I can also mess with that. Has Myriad, so whenever this creature attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you make a token copy tapped and attacking that player, then you exile them. But whenever this creature deals damage, you make a treasure token. So you play this for 4 mana. If it has haste, great. You connect. You then make 2 more copies, so then you could trigger Dragon Tempest if it's on board 2 additional times, and then you'll make 3 treasures. So essentially, like this card could have cost 1 mana, double Dragon Tempest trigger. Maybe you had like Tear the Peaks or something on board. Like this card just like screams synergy. Like I was playing cards like Dragon Broodmother, which is like every upkeep make a 1/1 essentially. But like maybe you could play something like this instead, right? Because it's gonna have a similar effect. If you have like Kindred Discovery on the board with this, now you've like you've casted this, draw a card, make 2 more copies, draw 2 more cards, trigger Dragon Tempest 2 times, make 3 treasure tokens. Like it just goes in the cog that is like these dragon creature type synergies. So I'm going to definitely try this card. Transcendent Dragon, again, one of them like interesting cards, like whether it's good or bad, I don't know. But I think it has room somewhere. 4 blue in the Air Dragon, 3 blue, flash flying. Whenever this creature enters, if you cast it, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Then you may cast it without playing its mana cost. I watched a video on this card where somebody was talking about like the interactions, and if you counter their commander with it, they can't put it in the command zone for some reason. I don't know how true that is, but it seemed like a pretty popular video, so that's something to be said if that's accurate. So it's 5 mana, you get a dragon body, and you counter a spell. Pretty good. And then you get the free spell back. You can pay it without paying its mana cost, which is good. But you're still holding up 5 mana in a dragon deck. That's kind of the pain point for me, right? Like you never really want to hold up 5 mana. Like 2 more mana, you could just be holding a Cyclonic Rift and just win the game. So I don't know. Not awful, but indifferent. And the last card we're going to look at is Ureni of the Unwritten. I licked this one more than the other one. And this is Teamer 4. In the Air Dragon, it's Teamer 3. Flying, trample, whatever. This card enters or attacks. So you're going to get the trigger, the turn it's cast. You can even get 2 triggers if you have haste on the board. Look at the top 8 cards. Pick a dragon. Put it on the battlefield and the rest at the bottom. I think I would try this card out. I think it's kind of like mini Ur Dragon in terms of like being able to cheat stuff. It is a little random, which is, yeah, I mean, the randomness of it, but thinking for 8 isn't something to scoff at. Like that's a pretty decent percentage of your deck, especially later in the game you go. But it does cost a lot of mana, and if you're someone like me who's like really mindful of the curve, hitting a 3 mana or 4 mana dragon is like the more likely thing, so it's like less exciting. If you're in this like big splashy dragon deck, the place is like all the big boys, like yeah, obviously it's insane, but I don't know. I want to try to play it. Like, I want to try to fit it in. Will it actually fit in based on space? I don't know. But I want to try. I think it's just like kind of top of the curve. Like, boom, play this guy. All right. Look at the top 8, grab something. Boom, play it. Trigger Dragon Tempest again. All right, boom, swing in. Boom, play Dragon again. Like, I don't know. Again, it fits into the cog of Dragon stuff, but we'll see. So, with that said, that is my set analysis for all the dragon creature type stuff that have coming out in Tarkir Dragonstorm and the commander decks. Let me know what you guys think of my thoughts. I also want to hear your thoughts on some of these cards, especially some of the ones we talked in detail about. Roiling Dragonstorm. I want to hear your thoughts on Call the Spirit Dragons, Mox Jasper, things of that nature. If you want to support me, please use the TCG Player affiliate link. I don't know if I touched on that in the beginning, but anything you purchase through my link in the description comes back to the channel. That is very appreciated. I did get a new link in June, so if you feel like you have the new link, just double check. You probably have the old link. A lot of people haven't been using the new link, so just make sure you bookmark the new link for me. Be sure to use code Draken for 5% off your Dueling Guard order. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you can even get a discount on this awesome Beast Gohan deck box. That is really cool Broly one. But browse their website. Use code Draken. And with that said, the video comes to a close. Thank you guys for watching. I look forward to your comments. And with that, I'm out.